In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Excel to take a random sample. To start out with, let's look at our data set. So open here in Excel, I have our Kentucky Derby data. Notice that the data contains 3 columns. First, we have the year, then the winner, and then time in seconds. Also, if we scroll down and look at our different rows, notice the first observation occurred in 1875, and scrolling down, the last one occurred in 2018. Since we have data for every year that the race was ran, notice that we have population data. One of the goals of this worksheet is to look at population data and then compare what random samples from that data look like. In the notes, we talked about how hopefully when we take random samples, those samples will have characteristics similar to the population. Alright, so what we're really interested in here, or the variable we're interested in, is time in seconds. So looking at our time in seconds data, since we have the winning time in seconds for the entire population, notice that this is population data. Our goal is to take 5 random samples from this population data. Pardon me, I should have said 4 random samples from this population data. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a sheet to store all of our data. So down here to the right, I'm going to click on the plus sign to make a new sheet. And we know that we're going to need population data. So I'm going to type in population data. And then we're also going to take 4 different samples. So I'm going to type in sample 1, sample 2, sample 3, and sample 4. So this is where I'm going to store all of my data that we're going to use for this worksheet. Going back to the first sheet, Kentucky Derby, we've already talked about how time in seconds is our population data. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down and copy all of my time in seconds. I'm going to go over to my second sheet and I'm going to paste it. So notice now we have our population data. Now what we're going to do is we're going to generate 4 samples randomly where each of the samples has 30 observations. I'm going to show you how to generate the first sample, and then you can repeat the process to generate sample 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to go back to our original sheet with our data. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, and I'm going to type in random number. Alright, in this column what we're going to do is we're going to store random numbers from 0 to 1. Each of these numbers will correspond to one of the times in seconds. Once we do that, we can use those numbers to help us choose a random sample of 30 times in seconds. Now you might be asking, why can't I just go through here and randomly select 30 different times? Well, the reason for that is human beings are very bad at picking things randomly. We really do need the computer to generate things for us. Alright, so our first step again is we're going to generate some random numbers between 0 and 1. To do this, we're going to use a function in Excel. We're going to type in equals, RAND, open and close parentheses, and click enter. And notice here we have a random number between 0 and 1. If we click on it, notice that Excel sees this as that function. So what we can do is if we click on the green box in the lower right hand corner and pull down, and we go all the way to the bottom of our data set, Excel will generate random numbers between 0 and 1 next to each of our times. Clicking on these, notice that Excel sees each of these as the function, but we need Excel to see these as the numbers. So to do this, what we're going to do is we click on the column. I'm going to right click and hit copy, right click again, and we're going to paste, but we're going to use the paste values option. Clicking here. Now notice my numbers changed because the function got reevaluated, but now when I click on these, Excel sees these as each of the values and not the function. Alright, so we have got ourselves a set of random numbers between 0 and 1 next to each of the times and seconds. So how can we use this to help us choose 30 random times and seconds? Well, what we can do is we can now order our data set based on these random numbers and choose the times that correspond to the lowest 30 numbers. Since the numbers were generated randomly, this will give us a random sample. Now, there's nothing special about choosing the lowest 30. We could also choose the highest 30 or some other way. So to do this, what we're going to do is again click on the random number column. We're going to click on Sort. We want to expand this to the entire data set. And what we're going to do is we're going to sort by random number. We're going to click OK. And now notice our entire data set has been resorted based on the random numbers. So notice the first observation corresponds to year 1947. Since these are ordered from smallest to largest, we can now select the 30 times that correspond to the lowest 30 random numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the first 30 times. Notice that the first row is 1, so I'm going to go down to row 31. I'm going to click on Copy. I'm going to go over to Sheet 2 where I'm storing my samples. And I'm going to paste. So notice now I have my first sample of random 30 times. You're going to want to repeat this process to get samples 2, 3, and 4. Before you repeat that process, let's go back over to our Kentucky Derby data and get it back to how it looked originally so that you can do that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the random numbers that I found. So I'm going to click on this column and click Delete. Next, I want to reorder my data so that time runs from earliest to most current. So to do that, I click on Year, Sort, expand the selection, and this time we're going to sort by year. Clicking OK. Notice we're back to where we started. So now you can use this same process to get your other 3 random samples.